For, well, centuries, science and faith have been painted as these two opposing forces, right? Like they're locked in this epic battle over who we really are. But what if that whole conflict is just a big misunderstanding? What if the brain and the soul aren't enemies at all, but actually partners in this whole project of being human? Today, we're going to dive into a super fascinating field that's building a bridge between these two worlds, neurotheology. To really get a handle on this divide, let's start with a story. It's an old parable, but it perfectly captures the problem. It's a tale of two cities, separated by a massive, deep chasm. Now, these cities weren't at war or anything. In fact, their fates were completely tied together, but they lived like they were on different planets, totally isolated and alone. So on one side, you have the eastern city. They were incredibly blessed, rich soil, food everywhere. They never had to worry about going hungry. But they didn't have much knowledge. They lacked skills, medicine. Then you have the western city. It was this amazing hub of wisdom and invention. They could build incredible things, heal the sick. But their land was barren. They were starving. You see the problem? Each city had the one thing the other desperately needed to survive. But that valley, that giant physical gap between them, it became so much more than just a geographic feature. It morphed into a symbol of their own pride and their own distrust. The East would say, we have food, we've got everything we need. And the West would reply, well, we have all the wisdom. And so that chasm between them just got wider and wider, not because of erosion, but because of suspicion. So you can probably see where this is going, right? This story is the perfect setup for the two worlds we're talking about today. The world of the brain, as seen by neuroscience, and the world of the soul, as understood by theology. And for way too long, a chasm has kept them apart. And that brings us to, one of the biggest questions we can possibly ask. Who are we? Are all of our thoughts, our hopes, our loves, our struggles, is it all just a bunch of neurons firing? Or is there something more, something deeper that actually defines us? On one side of that chasm, you've got the brain. And neuroscience gives us these incredible tools to understand our behavior. Things like neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change, and these powerful dopamine loops that literally drive our habits. And then, on the other side, you have the soul. Theology talks about this as the very seat of our identity, our moral compass, and the source of our deepest desires. Okay, this right here is a total game changer. Neuroplasticity. What this means is that your brain isn't some fixed piece of hardware you're born with. No, it's more like clay. Every single choice you make, every thought you entertain, every habit you repeat, it's physically reshaping the structure of your brain. You are, quite literally, the architect of your own mind every single day. Now, from the theological point of view, the soul is the absolute core of who you are. It's not some ghost floating around in your skull. It's the very essence of you. It's what gives you that gut feeling about right and wrong. It's the part of you that aches for meaning, for connection, for something bigger than yourself. So here we are. We've got these two incredibly powerful explanations for who we are, just staring at each other from opposite sides of a canyon. But just like in our story, a full, complete understanding of ourselves, well, that demands that we start building a bridge. And that bridge actually has a name, neurotheology. It's this really cool, emerging field that isn't trying to make one side win and the other lose. No, instead, it's taking the best insights from both and weaving them together to give us a much more complete, holistic picture of what it means to grow and to change as a person. And here's the absolute key. Neurotheology's whole argument is that the conflict itself was a mistake from the get-go. It's based on a false choice. You don't have to pick between being a biological robot or some kind of disembodied spirit. The truth, it suggests, is that we are so much more wonderfully integrated than that. And this phrase just nails it. The central idea is that we are embodied souls. Think about that. Our spiritual lives aren't happening in some separate, invisible realm. They're happening right here, in our bodies. The brain is the physical place where the soul gets to express itself. They're partners in a single, unified life, not enemies. Okay, so let's get practical. If the brain and soul are partners, how does that partnership actually play out, in our day-to-day lives? How does it shape our habits and our ability to actually make a change? Come on, everyone can relate to this, right? We've all been there. You try to stop doing something you know is bad for you, or start a new healthy routine, and it feels like you're trying to push a boulder uphill. Well, neurotheology gives us a really fascinating answer that involves both our brain and our soul. It all starts with this simple but incredibly profound rule from neuroscience. Think of it like this. Every time you do something or think something, it's like you're walking a path through a grassy field. The first time it's hard, but the more you walk that same path, the more worn in it gets, until eventually it's a deep, easy to follow rut. That's what's happening in your brain. And this whole process gets supercharged by a little chemical called dopamine. Now, people call it the pleasure chemical, but it's really more of a motivation chemical. It drives a three-step loop. First, something in your environment, a cue, grabs your attention. Then your brain releases dopamine, not because you got the reward, but in anticipation of it. That creates a powerful craving. And finally, when you act on it, that experience provides reinforcement, which carves that whole neural pathway even deeper. And this is exactly how destructive habits, or what theology might call sin, get such a powerful grip on us. A temptation, that's the cue, it captures our attention. Our brain then starts screaming for that immediate gratification. And when we give in, we reinforce that entire pattern, making it physically harder to say no the next time around. It's a vicious cycle. But, and this is the really hopeful part, that exact same neurological loop can be harnessed for good. We can intentionally point our attention towards spiritual disciplines. And by doing that, we can actually cultivate a craving for better things, for peace, for connection, for purpose. And as we practice those things, we reinforce new pathways, making virtues like patience or kindness feel more and more natural, more automatic. And this isn't just some nice theory. We can actually see it happen. Consistent prayer, that literally strengthens the attention networks in the front part of your brain. Meditation helps you regulate your emotions. Worship can actually retrain your brain's reward system to find joy in things other than just consumption. And acts of service literally build the neural pathways for generosity. These aren't just spiritual ideas, they are physical actions changing your physical brain. So if there's one big takeaway from all this, it's that spiritual growth isn't some abstract, floaty, invisible concept. It is a fully embodied process. It's where the deepest intentions of our soul meet the physical rewiring of our brain. Real, lasting transformation has to engage the whole person. And that leaves us with one last pretty powerful question to think about. We know for a fact now that our habits, our repeated thoughts, our repeated actions are physically sculpting the very architecture of our brains, day in and day out. So the question is, what are you building? What pathways are you strengthening in your mind?